the attention of the General Assembly to document A/67/L56/revision 1, circulated under agenda item 60, implementation of the Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples. Members will recall that at its second plenary meeting on 21st September 2012, the General Assembly allocated this item to the Special Political and Decolonization Committee in order for the Assembly to proceed expeditiously on this item. May I take it that the Assembly agrees to consider this item directly in plenary meeting and to proceed immediately to its consideration? I see no objection. It is so decided. The General Assembly will now resume its consideration of agenda item 60 to take action on the draft resolution issued as document A/67/L56/revision 1. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Solomon Islands to introduce draft resolution A/67/L56/revision 1.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished representative, I have the distinct honor on behalf of the sponsors, Nauru, Solomon Islands, and Tuvalu, and co-sponsors Samoa, Vanuatu, and Timor-Leste, to introduce draft resolution A/67/L56 Rev.1, entitled Self-Determination of French Polynesia, dated 1st March 2013, to the General Assembly under agenda item 60. Mr. President, agenda item 60 was left open in our December sitting of the General Assembly. We come to this principal organ of our multilateral organization because of our shared belief in it as chief deliberative and most representative body of our multilateral system. More importantly, this is the body that promotes fundamental freedom for all people. Historically, Mr. President, French Polynesia was inscribed by the administrating power on the original list by way of Resolution 66-1 of 1946, together with New Caledonia. This was done in compliance with the obligations under Chapter 10 of the UN Charter, Article 7E of Chapter 10, which requires the administrative power to provide the General Assembly with information on development towards full measure of self-government in these territories. 1 year later, in 1947, the General Assembly was no longer furnished with the information on French Polynesia, and subsequent list of non-self-governing territories published in 1963 was omitted. What amounted to a de facto removal of the French Polynesia and New Caledonia from the UN oversight occurred without concurrence of the General Assembly. It was not until 1986 that the General Assembly adopted Resolution 4141, which resumed international recognition that New Caledonia was a non-self-governing territory within the meaning of the UN Charter, which provided appropriate international oversight for legitimate process of self-determination. Accordingly, this Assembly adopts a resolution on New Caledonia each year in exercise of review in process of self-determination underway pursuant to the new Mayor Accord. Mr. President, 2 years ago, in June 2011, Council of Ministers of French Polynesia adopted a resolution seeking self-determination within the UN process. The Territories Assembly adopted the resolution in August of 2011. Support for this resolution enjoys wide international support at the highest political level. Within the Pacific region, leaders of the Pacific Forum registered their support for the principle of self-determination of French Polynesia as far back as 2004, and most recently in 2011 and 12 as well. Heads of the second engagement with the Pacific Conference in 2011 also made a similar call. The Polynesian leaders group pronounced themselves also on this issue. At global level, the Ministerial Non-Aligned Movement Coordinating Bureau in 2012 and the heads of states and government of NAM in 2012 endorsed the right of self-determination for French Polynesia, specifically in accordance with the UN Charter and relevant resolutions of the General Assembly, including the landmark Decolonization Declaration. Discussions on the resolution have been around the corridors of the UN for a while. This includes informal consultations among member states. The resolution on self-determination of French Polynesia was initially taken up in 2011. At the end of the first year of consultation, there was a delay at the request of the administrating power because of its own national election, which were held in May 2012. While there is no organic link between national elections of an administrating power and the exercise of inalienable right of self-determination of people of a territory, agreement was made in the interest of flexibility to postpone consideration at that time, and with the agreement to leave open the relevant agenda considered at the beginning of 2013. Accordingly, consultations continued with the UN members throughout 2013, and the text was published on L.56 on the 7th of February 2013. This is followed by two informal meetings on the text of the UN with UN members. Emerging from this process was a revised text published on the 1st of March 2013, which took into account substantive recommendation offered by interested delegation. The text of the revised draft resolution is now tighter and consistent with agreed language of the 1986 resolution on New Caledonia. It was a wish and call to have the resolution tabled in March and again in April. This did not happen. We are, however, glad that it is now before us, before this Assembly. Mr. President, the spirit and purpose of the resolution is in compliance with established procedural practice of the General Assembly, which remains the ultimate authority to consider and refer self-determination of French Polynesia to the Fourth Committee on a matter that is within the scope of the Charter. Under Article 73E of the Charter, the administrative power is required to provide information on French Polynesia. As stated above, the last report was received 66 years ago. The resolution A/67/L56 Rev.1 is based on the principle that it is for the non-self-governing territory of French Polynesia to choose their future destiny in a just and fair process. The resolution sends a simple message of peace and hope to the population that wants to determine their future. It is also registered in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, and also the economic, social, and cultural rights, both entered into force in 1976. The matter of decolonization remains an unfinished business of the United Nations. In considering this resolution, three primary reference documents: the Charter of the United Nations, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Declaration of Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and People. These documents provide a clear and solid foundation for a UN role and responsibility to peace and allow for an act of self-determination to be carried out. Mr. President, let me now respond to some of the misunderstandings generated by the campaign launched by our friend and partner, France. Outcome of elections on French Polynesia must never be equated with a referendum. It does not have any relevance to the inalienable right of self-determination of the people of French Polynesia. L.56 Rev.1 creates a process for non-self-governing territories' population to determine their political future, be it sovereign independence, free association with the administrative power, maintaining the current status quo, or politically integrating itself with the administrative power. Mr. President, L.56 Rev.1 provides a peaceful process, and it has the long-term interest of French Polynesia in all aspects. We, the sponsors and co-sponsors, call on all members to adopt the resolution by consensus. In doing so, to support the Charter and honor the Decolonization Declaration. We believe the decolonization process under the auspices of the United Nations is something we all, most of us in this assembly, went through. As my predecessor, His Excellency, the late Francis Saimala, said in our national statement 27 years ago on the debate on New Caledonia, Resolution 4141, the decolonization saw the smooth attainment of many of our countries, including my own. The United Nations role gave the assurance that progress towards statehood and nation building were being pursued under the watchful eyes of the United Nations. It is in this regard we, the sponsors and co-sponsors, believe in our multilateral system then, and we do now with confidence, and once again call on everyone to support the principle of self-determination and adopt the draft resolution L.56 Rev.1 for us by consensus. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Solomon Island, Ambassador Colin Beck, for his introduction. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/67/L56/Rev.1 entitled Self-Determination of French Polynesia. In connection with draft resolution A/67/L56/Rev.1, I would like to give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. In connection with draft resolution A/67/L56, revision 1, entitled Self-Determination of French Polynesia, I wish to put on the record the following statements of financial implications on behalf of the Secretary General, in accordance with Rule 153 of the Rules of Procedure of the General Assembly. In operative paragraph 2 of draft resolution A/67/L56 revision 1, the Assembly would request the Special Committee on the situation with regard to the implementation of declaration and the granting of independence to
Oh non.
colonial countries and peoples to consider the question of French Polynesia at its next session and to report thereon to the General Assembly at its 68th session, in anticipation that the request contained in operative paragraph 2 for documentation constitutes an addition to the documentation workload of the Department for General Assembly and Conference Management for one document to be issued in all 6 languages annually, beginning with 2014. This would entail additional requirements for $101,800 for documentation services in the biennium 2014-2015. No provision has been included under the proposed program budget for the biennium 2014-2015 for the above activity, and as such, additional allocation of funds would be required. Accordingly, through the General Assembly, adopt draft resolution A/67/L56 revision 1, additional resources in the amount of $101,800 would be required under the program budget for the biennium 2014-2015 under Section 2, General Assembly and Economic and Social Affairs, and conference management. This would require additional appropriations of $1,800 included in the program budget for the biennium 2014-2015. Thank you, Mr. President.
C'est pour ça que quand ils montent tous ou qu'ils nous croisent autour d'eux en disant « Ah là, qu'est-ce qu'il a classé maintenant ?» Ça me fout en rage. Ce matin, on avait jeté
The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/67/L56, revision 1, entitled Self-Determination of French Polynesia.
Je ne sais pas comment on va le faire en encadré ou en vous savez.
I now give the floor to the representative
Comme il n'y
of
avait
the
pas de budget
Secretary.
prévu, parce que ce n'était pas prévu le budget l'an dernier, enfin, tu vois,
I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution, in addition to those
à l'intérieur de
delegations,
l'ONU pour le travail que ça
on
va
behalf of
occasionner à la
the
Commission,
following countries have
ils
also
ont
become
alloué un
co-sponsors
budget
of
de 101 800 $.
A/57/L56 revision 1.
Alors quand tu penses,
Samoa
c'est plutôt une bonne
Timor-Leste
affaire.
and
Quand tu penses
Vanuatu.
que l'Italien là, qui a fait un pauvre PowerPoint sur la
May I
PA, il a
take it
pris
that
20
the
millions.
Assembly decides to adopt draft resolution
Non, ça sera peut-être plutôt un vous savez quoi, c'est marrant.
A/56/revision 1.
Je vais voir avec
It is
Patrice.
so decided.
Mais, t'as besoin de faire un historique?
Before giving the floor to the speakers, in explanation of vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegation from their seats. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of United Kingdom. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. The United Kingdom disassociates itself from consensus on this resolution. The United Kingdom's position on the United Nations decolonisation process is well known. We regret that the Decolonisation Committee continues with its outdated approach. In addition, on this particular resolution, the United Kingdom believes that it is not for the General Assembly to determine, in any particular case, that an obligation exists for a state to submit information under Article 73E of the United Nations Charter. Thank you.
I thank the representative of United Kingdom. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Netherlands.
Mr. President, thank you for giving me the floor. We regret that the Kingdom of the Netherlands must disassociate itself from the consensus on the resolution Self-Determination of French Polynesia. The Kingdom of the Netherlands does support the inalienable rights of the people of non-self-governing territories to self-determination. However, the General Assembly must adhere to the views expressed through democratic processes by the people of these non-self-governing territories, including French Polynesia. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Netherlands. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Germany.
C'est pas... Ça, c'est en dehors de l'ONU, de toute façon, les accords de l'ONU.
Monsieur le Président, je souhaite constater qu'en but...
en réalité.
Mr. President, I'd like to say that in light of the letter of President addressed to the President of the Assembly and in view of the resolution adopted yesterday, which disallows the resolution of the General Assembly. Germany considers that the Assembly should not have continued to review the resolution contained in document L56 Rev.1. So Germany would like to dissociate itself from the consensus, and I would request the Secretary to please record this decision in the report of the meeting. Thank you.
En même temps,
Thank the distinguished representative of Germany. Now I give the floor to
on n'aura même pas
the
à peine
distinguished
besoin de
representative of
les
the United
interviews.
States.
Et si on reçoit,
Thank you, Mr. President.
si on
The United States strongly affirms the principle of self-determination enshrined in the United Nations Charter as one of the fundamental values of this organization. The facts in this
Si on reçoit les
case
salles
are
de bon et
clear.
qu'on a le discours, c'est bien
The
de voir
people
les
of French
arguments qui
Polynesia,
reprennent.
through their democratically elected representatives, have made clear that they do not support this resolution.
Voilà,
The
donc ça on
newly
peut le
elected
reproduire
government,
en vrai.
which takes office today, has notified the General Assembly
Ben, il faut le
that
refaire
this
chier,
resolution,
parce que là ils vont
quotes,
commencer à se bourrer la
ignores
gueule,
our
donc
autonomy and the will of our people, close quote.
il va
We are
aborder
surprised
ensemble
that
petit
the
vite,
co-sponsors
il va
have
boire un coup.
continued with General Assembly action on this resolution, given the will of the people it purportedly benefits. For these reasons, the United States disassociates itself from consensus
Et
on
puis
this
je voudrais faire
resolution.
un petit
Thank
engrais
you.
sur les pays qui se sont démarqués de la du consensus
I
et les
give the
raisons
floor
qu'ils
to
ont
the
données
distinguished
contre.
representative of Mexico.
Parce que c'est soufflé par la France, mais c'est intéressant parce que ça reflète aussi leurs propres intérêts coloniaux.
Mexico recognizes the inalienable right to self-determination of peoples. This is one of the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter in Article 1, Para 2. This has been reaffirmed by the United Nations General Assembly in its Resolution 2625. It is also recognized in Article 1 as one of the economic, social, and political rights. This right is also enshrined in the political constitution of Mexico as one of our guiding principles for our foreign policy. It is particularly because we apply these principles strictly that Mexico believes that in this case before us, we must guarantee the right of all interested parties to have their rights recognized. This is part of the equitable process among parties which the General Assembly is to ensure, to guarantee. Mexico would have preferred that we could have responded positively to the request of the authorities from French Polynesia involved in the democratic electoral process and which takes office today, and to postpone consideration of this issue until an official dialogue could have been begun with the authorities, the authors of this initiative, and with the General Assembly of the United Nations. For these reasons, the delegation of Mexico wishes to make it known that we have reservations with regard to the way in which this resolution is being adopted. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Mexico. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Argentina.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Argentina's joint consensus in favor of draft resolution L.57, L.56, Rev.1 in favor of the right of self-determination of the people of French Polynesia in accordance with the Resolution 1514 and other relevant decisions of the General Assembly on decolonization. The draft resolution that has just been adopted clearly falls under Resolution 1541, 15, and other relevant resolutions of the General Assembly on decolonization. At the same time, Argentina considers that the Decolonization Committee is the appropriate forum for discussing issues related, covered in this draft resolution. We fully trust in the work carried out by the Special Committee on Decolonization. We understand that in this forum, the Polynesian people can express its views with regard to the status that it wishes to achieve. We are convinced that decolonization can only be a process that is supervised by the United Nations, in which the administrative powers fully take on the responsibility that they shoulder in order to achieve the goals set out in Resolution 1541-15. The reinsertion of French Polynesia, of reinscription in the list of non-self-governing territories will certainly contribute to move forward according to the principles established by the United Nations for such cases. This position of principles is based on Argentina's firm commitment to the free determination of all peoples in all cases where the United Nations has plays a leading role in accordance with the relevant resolutions. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my delegation wishes to take the floor to explain briefly Indonesia's position on draft resolution A/66/L56/Rev.1 that the Assembly has just adopted. The UN Charter declares that one of the purposes of the organization is to develop a friendly relation among states with respect to the principle of equal rights and self-determination of people. The right of self-determination is also one of the principles stipulated in Indonesia's national constitution. It is reflected in our foreign policy with the caveat that it cannot be construed as authorizing or encouraging any action which would dismember or impair totally or in part the territorial integrity or political unity of sovereign or independent states. Indonesia is of the view that the consideration of the question of French Polynesia during the next session of the Special Committee on Decolonization is solely based on a specific historical context and shall not set a precedent for those territories that used to be under the agenda of the Special Committee, but the status of which has already changed. Towards moving forward, we encourage the government of France and the French Polynesians to continue engaging in a constructive dialogue that would best serve the fundamental interests of the people of French Polynesia. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Indonesia. We have heard the last speaker in explanation of vote. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Solomon Island.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, let me, on behalf of the sponsors and co-sponsors of the resolution, to thank all who have joined consensus on this particular resolution, and we also note those who have voted otherwise. We thank you all, and we look forward to working with both. We look forward to once again seeing the administrating power of France and the non-self-governing territory, French Polynesia, to now begin to continue the work with to continue the cooperation within the appropriate body. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Solomon Island. Now, may I take it that it is the wish of the General Assembly to conclude its consideration of agenda item 60. It is so decided. The General Assembly will now consider agenda item 35, entitled